Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, How to Prepare for Regeneron STS. I'm Stephen Chen from Professor Chen Education Paris. First, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. And in today's webinar, in case we have any question, please feel free to stop me. And if you also want to type your questions in the chat box, please feel free to do so. I will also read your questions and take your questions. Okay. For those of you who are not familiar with Regeneron STS, or maybe some of you have heard about its name, but don't know a lot about its details. So let me first give you the high-level idea about the basics, and then we'll go into the details. And I realized that actually having a clear overall picture is very important to help you to follow me and understand today's webinar. It is because otherwise you'll lose the big picture and you'll be easily lost when you go into the details and prepare for this competition. So the first is the aim. What Regeneron STS is for. So it is for the purpose to recognize your achievement in STEM research and your potential to be a leader in STEM after you go to a college. So you see, this is their objective, how they select the top candidates, like top 300 finalists or top 40 finalists, right? So you see that first, they need to evaluate the STEM research that you did in your high school career. And also, based on that, they also want to evaluate that based on your profile, whether we have passion and potential to continue to contribute to STEM research after you get into college, okay? And the second function Regeneron STS has, so that is not mentioned on their website. And I'm pretty sure they will not do it. But actually, this is what universities try to adopt from Regeneron STS. That is, so you know that every January, STS will announce top 300 and top 40 finalists. After it makes those announcements, then the university admissions offices will get the student name list, and they will look at those students' profiles and screen their applications and then select whom they shall admit. So basically, Regeneron STS has the second function to pre-screen top STEM students for college admissions offices, okay? And in particular, for the second function, then it's the following thing. That is, Regeneron STS is well recognized by college admissions. So let me just give you some basic facts. Okay, I don't need to explain to you about why or reason, just presenting the fact. That could be simple, right? So first, actually, we have a chance to talk to quite a few top-tier university admissions offices. And they clearly told me that. So they use STS results to admit students. So those universities who appreciate STS include like the Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and also like the Yale, Princeton, etc. Okay, so basically based on your current profile, maybe you're at the borderline to be accepted into those top tier schools. But in January, you got to STS, say top 300 or top 40, then actually your chance to be accepted by these top universities will be boosted a lot. So then in March, it's very likely that you'll be accepted by some or even all these top tier universities. Okay, so actually these are two specific examples. One is that in the past, there were students who applied to MIT in the early cycle, but were deferred. But in January, these students got into the Regeneron STS top 40. So finally, in the early cycle, the students were accepted by MIT. So we know that for MIT, in the early cycle, if you are not directly admitted, then MIT would put most students to the early cycle and defer the admission decisions for those students. But the thing is, because they tried to defer almost all E8 applicants to the early cycle, so it makes those students have a super low chance to be accepted in the early cycle. Because in the early cycle, MIT receives additional applications. And among those applications, there are some top candidates. So MIT will give priorities to first admit those who newly submit their applications to the RD cycle. So basically, if you defer to MIT, your chance to be accepted in March will be super low. But actually, this student was a very good example, where this student actually got Regeneron STS award, right? So finally, MIT decided to admit this student. And the second example is more extreme, but this is the true story. So there are students who applied to some Ivy League in the early cycle, but unfortunately, the students were rejected. So first think about it, in December, when you receive the rejection decision, so you'll be very disappointed, right? But actually, that was not a bad thing. It is because just a couple of weeks after receiving the rejection letter, that was January. So this student received the Regeneron STS final results. So this student got into the top 300 and even top 40. So finally, in March, the students' fortunes was totally reverted. So the students were accepted by all top-tier universities, such as Harvard, MIT, Stanford. So hopefully from these concrete examples, you get a concrete idea about the value of Regeneron STS in college admissions. And in other words, you are the rising senior, so all your other profiles are already there, and there's no way for you to make some significant change or improvements of your current profile. So the last piece of value you can add to your profile is probably Regeneron STS. And next thing is about the timeline. So the deadline to submit your application for this year's Regeneron STS is November 7, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Okay? And please note that for STS, you need to submit your recommendation letters. We'll talk about it in a second. Okay? So it requires that all those recommendation letters must be submitted before this deadline, which means that if you submit your application on time, but your recommenders have delays, then unfortunately, your application is incomplete and they cannot accept additional letters sent after the deadline. So this is a hard deadline for both the applicants and recommenders. After you submit your application, then you'll receive your decisions in January. So for 2025, there are 2 days. So January 9th, they will announce top 300. On January 23rd, they will announce top 40. Okay, so those are the timelines. And I know some of you may say, okay, so for those the times that they announce the top 300, top 40 scholars, so they're already after the early, in particular, the ED admission decisions rolled out, right? That is true. So you apply to the school, that is for the ED. So unfortunately, so the Regeneron STS will not help you. So it will only help you for your RD application. And for the schools that you apply in the early cycle, but you are not admitted, but fortunately, so you are deferred to the RD cycle. Then for that case, Regeneron STS will help you. Okay? But the thing is, suppose you apply to a school in the early cycle, but unfortunately, December, you got the rejection letter. Unfortunately, so the Regeneron STS will not help you to allow a university to revert the admission decision. Okay? All right. Another thing is, some of you may say, well, you look at the days that they announced the top scholars. So they are typically after the RD application submission deadline, right? Because most of the deadlines will be in early January, like January 1st, the 2nd, 3rd, right? So again, don't worry about it. It's not an issue at all. So when you prepare for your RD application, before the deadline, just go ahead to submit my application without thinking about Regeneron STS. Okay? After you submit your applications for the RD cycle, and suppose that on January 9th, you got a notification from STS that you're accepted, then immediately contact the universities you just applied to update your information. And all those universities will seriously take down that additional information. It's just because they value Regeneron STS a lot, and they fully understand that the time it releases the decisions will be after the university's application deadline. So all universities, they are aware of it, and they have their own mechanism to process this information. Okay. The next basic information is about the application form. So applying to Regeneron STS is not so trivial. There are lots of work to do. You have a chance to create your account. You'll see that there are 11 tasks to do. So it's very, very time consuming. But the good thing is, so you don't have to prepare your Regeneron STS the application form separately from your college applications. So that is something I will talk about in a moment. That is, so you look at those 11 tasks. Actually, so it's about a mixture. So some questions are pretty much the same as SF. Some questions are pretty much the same as college application prompts. So you should put your main focus on preparing for your college applications. And meanwhile, so just directly use some the assets you write for college applications to regenerate STS. And beyond that, so you just need to do some minimum amount of additional work for STS. You'll be good. Okay. All right. And there's another thing I want to mention here. It's about a new trend for 2025 Regeneron STS. When I'm saying 2025, I mean that the application deadline is November 2024, and decisions will be announced in early 2025. Okay. So there are the following two facts that we must take into consideration. One is about the 2024 SF, because we know that SF and Regeneron STS are both run by the same organization, right? So they will have to look at what happened in the past SF. But maybe some of you have heard about this scandal, right? In 2024 SF. So I forgot whether that student was the second place or the third place, right? So there was one student, so who was originally awarded a top level award, but then several days later, someone wrote a very long report and posted it on the website, right? So it lists some evidence that this student cheated, right? Like for instance, there are some images that actually were not from this own research, but it were copy and pasted from some other research papers, right? So then SF did a careful investigation. Several days later, SF decided that this student's award should be revoked, okay? So there was some SF dishonest behavior and was a big scandal in SF history. Given this fact, so my guess is that in the upcoming Regeneron STS, so STS committee will look at the dishonest behaviors very, very seriously. In particular, nowadays, many people use AI. So I'm pretty sure that they will check it very, very seriously and see that whether you lied, whether you were academically dishonest, in terms of such as making some images that were not made by you, but you copy and pasted from somewhere else, but you falsely claim that you
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. So this is the first thing. So you need to make sure that your entire profile is academically honest. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. And the second thing is, you know, that in the past 1 to 2 years, AI is developing super, super fast, right? In particular, generative AI. So it's reasonable that you use AI to help you prepare for a general STS. That makes sense for everyone. But you need to know the boundary. What kind of things that you could seek help from AI? What kind of things that is prohibited? Okay. And actually, for this application, you look at task 4, question 15. So it explicitly asks you to explain to what extent you use the AI. So when you use AI in your application, first, you need to disclose it. And second, you need to know the clear boundary that what kind of the task that AI help you to do. Let me give you some extreme cases. For instance, you use AI to generate an essay for Regeneron STS. Of course, this is prohibited. This is not allowed, or if you use just AI to help you generate your research report, that is the forbidden, right? But you say, okay, so I use the AI to correct the grammatical mistakes, or I use the AI to help me generate an image or edit an image. So those should be okay. Sounds good? All right. So far, I've given you the enough background about the Regeneron STS. Hopefully, it helps you establish an overall picture. And next, we'll go into the detail. So here's the outline of today's webinar. So first, I will emphasize why you should not separately prepare for your Regeneron STS application, but you should do it together with your college applications. And the second, because STS and SF are both organized by the same institute, and they share lots of similarities. They are both the research competitions, right? So what are their relationships? And third, I will give you the timeline of how to prepare for Regeneron STS. And then we will go into the STS application form. So we'll go through all those tasks one by one. And finally, I will tell you about what we can do for students. First, why you should jointly prepare for both STS and your college applications. So this is the first basic fact. You put up your Regeneron STS application form, you'll see that there are a bunch of questions that are exact college application questions. Like task 2, for external support. So you will be required to submit some recommendation letters. So for instance, you need to submit letters from your high school teachers, from your research mentors, from your high school counselors. So those are pretty much the same requirements as applying to colleges, right? And the second is you look at task 7, essay questions. So for problem 4, this is exactly the common app main essay, 650 words main essay. Task 8, you're asked to list your activities, interests, and awards. So again, this is one section in Common App. You have activity list, you have honors awards list, right? And task 9 asks you to upload your test scores, like the SAT, ACT, the AP, right? So again, so you have to upload those scores in Common App. So you see there are lots of overlap with college applications. And the second, there are some questions, although they may not be exactly the same as the college application components, but they're highly relevant. For instance, if you look at task 7, essay questions. For the first 2 prompts, prompt 1 is about asking you to describe your research by doing the layperson summary. That is, you should not use the too scientific language that no one else in the world can understand it. It's too scientific, but they want you to state your research in a way that everyone who is not in your field can still understand what you did, right? So this is called layperson summary. And problem 2 is about the project benefits and impact. So for what you did, right? So what could be the social impact? What could be the scientific impact, right? So actually, these 2 prompts or their variants are frequently asked in college-specific prompts. So many universities will ask you to say, okay, so if you did some research, tell me about what you did, right? Or if you did some research, they will say, okay, so why you did this research? What's the impact, right? So you see that these are highly related to many college-specific prompts in the college application documents. And third, we also observe that Regeneron STS explicitly prepared some questions that are from some particular universities. So one is MIT. So if you look at task 4 here about science research description. So here I listed 4 prompts, and all these 4 prompts are explicitly asked by MIT. So basically, you say I want to apply to MIT in the early cycle, so you need to answer those questions. And for applications to STS, again, the same questions. And this one is also the same as the Stanford. So for task 8 prompt 2, it asks you to summarize the activities that you did in the past 3 summers. So for Stanford, it just asks you to summarize what you did in the past 2 summers, but pretty much the same, right? Okay, so from the above evidence, I hope that now you get a clear sense that although Regeneron STS is a separate application from college applications, but since they share lots of things in common with college application forms. So when you prepare for it, you should not separate it from the college application. You should put them together, prepare for them in an integrated way. And actually, this is very, very important. It's because your senior year, when you prepare for your college applications, I believe that every student will be super, super busy, right? Since you have a very busy schedule, you need to prepare for your applications, you need to manage your school coursework, right? You have to do lots of things. So you definitely want to be efficient, want to manage your time in a good way, right? Therefore, you should prepare both college applications and Regeneron STS altogether. Okay. The second thing is about the detailed explanation and clarification of the relationship between STS and SF. So you've had a chance to previously participate in SF. It's good that your workload to prepare for Regeneron STS will be lightened a lot. That's a good thing. But you also need to be very careful that although they share lots of commonalities, but there's still some fundamental differences. Okay. So first, let me summarize the commonalities between STS and SF. So they are both STEM research competitions, right? And both of them require you to complete some paperwork. In particular, it involves humans, involve animal, hazardous materials. So there are some paperwork and clearance you need to receive. And both of them are run by the same organization called the Society for Science. And actually, because of the common nature in research, so many people simply use their SF projects as STS projects. So this is also allowed. Okay, so those are commonalities. So basically, in other words, if you participated in SF in the past and you had a great research, so you want to use the same one for STS, in many cases, it's okay. That is okay. So that will make your preparation for STS to be much easier. But these two things still have some fundamental differences. So I basically try to decompose into multiple dimensions to explain to you about their fundamental differences. Because what I observed in the past is that there were some people who are not clear about the differences. So that may make them to be disqualified when they apply to STS, okay? Or that might make their cases not so strong in STS. So these are the major distinctions. The first thing is, what is evaluated? For SF, we will evaluate projects, okay? So basically, in other words, we don't care about who did this project or how many people did a project. Maybe one person, the solo the person project, or maybe it is done by a team with 2 or 3 people. So the judges don't care about it, right? So they just make evaluation based on the credential of the projects. But that is not true for STS. So STS is an individual-based competition. So they try to evaluate every individual student rather than a project. So this is fundamental. It is because for SF projects, suppose you did it in collaboration with another high school student. So this project was fantastic. It got the first place, second place. But if you go to STS, they look at different dimension. They say, okay, this project is good, but I noticed that you're not a solo author, you work together with someone else. So I'm wondering that for this project, so where was your contribution? Where was your the collaborator's contribution? If your contribution was not so significant, and most of the tasks were done by your collaborator, then unfortunately, this is a good project for SF, but this is not appropriate for STS because they want to look at every individual student's personal qualification. Okay, so this is very, very important. And the second thing is about the duration. For SM, you know that you must submit a project that will stand within 1 year. But for STS, there's no such restriction because the point is that they want to evaluate an individual student's overall achievements in STEM over this student's entire high school period. So basically, this is the evaluation for the 4 years, not just the evaluation for a single year. Therefore, for STS, you are allowed to submit your research report based on the research, not just done in the most recent 1 year, but maybe the across multiple years. Okay, that is allowed. And the third thing is what to submit. So for SF, you need to submit chart, poster, slides. So in other words, it means that for SF, if you don't have a research paper, you may still get a top tier award. That's possible. But for STS, no way. For STS, you must submit your research report, or we call the research paper. And you don't need to submit slides, posters. So you see that the materials to submit for STS and SF in terms of research are completely orthogonal, are different. Okay, so basically, in other words, it means that maybe you received a good award in SF, but when you attend SF, you didn't have any research paper. Then now, if you want to use the same research for STS, you'll be in trouble. So you must come up with a paper. Otherwise, your application will be incomplete. Will be disqualified. And the fourth dimension of the distinction is about the competition process. For SF, so it's hierarchical. So which means that you start typically from the school level, and then you go to the county level. Sometimes you go to the state level and the final international science fair, right? There are multiple steps. But for STS, it's not the case. You make the direct submission to Regeneron STS committee. Okay, so there's no such intermediate steps. Okay, actually, this is a good thing because that ensures that all submissions will be evaluated by using the same criteria by the same group of judges in the federal. Okay, because we know for SF, so actually even for the same project, you submitted to different counties or different states. So maybe that will be evaluated in a different way, right? So maybe for the same project, you submitted through or you attended the science fair in county A, you could directly get into SF. But for the same project, you use this in county B, so maybe you'll be killed, right? So for Regeneron STS, there's no such issue. Okay. All right. I noticed that some people post some questions in the chat box. Is good. So let me first complete my presentation, or maybe I'll stop somewhere and then look at the questions people ask, and then I will take all questions together. Okay. All right. The next thing is about the school year. So for SF, you can compete in any year as long as you are in high school. But for STS, no, you only have the single chance that is your last year in your high school. You must be a senior student. Okay. And then about your citizenship. For SF, you can use any citizenship. You can attend a high school anywhere in the world. But for STS, is more strict. So you must attend a US school. So if you go to a US school, so actually you can be either US citizen or international student or whatever. But if you are currently attending a non-US school, then you must be a US citizen. Otherwise, you are not eligible to compete. So for instance, you say someone is attending a school out of the US, but this one holds a green card. And firstly, this student doesn't qualify for STS. Okay. So hopefully now you get some rough idea that so maybe STS to some extent it might not be so as competitive as SF in the sense that first, so it doesn't accept the group work. So in particular, so it excludes a lot of the projects in engineering because in SF we could see there are lots of great engineering projects that were done by teams with more than one person, right? So all those projects do not qualify for STS. And the second, so there are lots of projects in SF that don't have research papers. So those projects do not qualify for STS. Third, there were many SF projects that were done by non-US students or non-US citizens. So again, they cannot compete for STS. So from this sense, it seems that STS is not so competitive compared to SF. Okay. All right. the next thing is about the timeline of preparing for Regeneron STS. Okay, so recall that at the beginning of the webinar, so I showed you the some key days. So the most important day is about the submission deadline. That will be in early November, right? So now you need to plan the backward way. So let me give you some idea. The first thing is you should begin with getting clarification from STS about any concern about a research report, including like your project, your paper. So here's the thing. If you go to Regeneron STS website, it has a guideline with about 50 pages, but it can not still answer everyone's individual questions. Because different people have different questions. Like for instance, let me tell you some common questions. Some people will say, okay, so I have a research paper, but there were 3 authors there. But actually, so there was one component and make the fundamental and significant contribution. So whether I can use this particular part to form my research report for STS, right? So this is a very common question. Where some other people will say, okay, so I did 2 pieces of research in the past 2 years, and they're in the same category. Would it be possible for me to put them together? And if you try to put them together, in what way? So there are lots of such subtle questions that cannot be answered by their published guideline handbook. Therefore, before you formally start to prepare your research report, do not make random guess. After knowing what questions, what concerns you have, directly contact STS. So this is the first thing you should do. Okay, this is very important. So STS committee, actually, they're very friendly. They try to help students to get clarified of their questions. Okay, so always first get clarification from STS about the boundary and the scope of what kind of things you can do, what kind of things you are not allowed to do. In particular, it's about preparing for your research report. Okay, and as well as suggest you to move as early as possible. The first reason is that Regeneron STS may receive lots of emails every day. So they may not respond to you very fast. So there might be some delay. And the second thing is because this is the first thing you need to get clarified before the starting to prepare your research report, right? So you definitely don't want to start to prepare for it in October. You want to start early. So first try to get clarification as quickly as possible. And then you could formally start. Okay, so that is the first thing you have to do. Okay, then the next thing is, so there's some components that require you to get external support. So let me make it more clear. That is about recommendation letters. Okay, so you need to get letters from quite a few people, maybe as many as 5 people. So you need to contact these 5 people as early as possible. Okay, because recall that their submission deadlines will be also be the early November, right? So in case if they have some delays, so then your case will be incomplete. That is not good. Okay, and please note that later we will see. So although we have to get lots of recommendation letters, but those are pretty much the overlap and what we will use in your college applications. So you can do them together. So when you talk to your school counselor, talk to your mentor, tell them, okay, so I want you to write a letter to support both my college application and also my Regeneron STS. Okay, so just ask them to do things together. Okay, and the third thing is that you also need to move first before starting your application is the paperwork. So this applies to those of you whose research involve human beings, involve animals, and hazardous materials. So you need to complete lots of paperwork and get some the signature, get some clearance. Okay, because in the past we saw some students in particular who did research related to biology, that is about animal study, about chemistry. So actually they need to complete some paperwork, but they couldn't get all signatures, or their paperwork were not complete. So that make them disqualified. So this is very important. And in particular, there's one thing I want to particularly mention. So for animals or hazardous materials, I think this is a common sense. We know that we need to get a clearance, we need to complete the paperwork. And also, please note about human research. So human research not just includes like those say I collect the human tissues, right, to do some scientific research, but also this includes some other kind of human-related research that many students ignore. Let me give you some examples. That could be like, okay, for this research, so I sent out the questionnaire and a survey. So I distributed to the schoolmates, and then I collect the survey. They'll help me collect their data and do some analysis. Okay, so if your research has this component, then you need to complete the paperwork. And some people say, okay, so I invented a biomedical device like the EEG, right? So I try to test it with my friends. As long as you didn't test it on your body, but someone else. So again, you need to complete the paperwork. You can't say I collected data from 10 people, 10 friends without completing the paperwork. That's not allowed for STS. Okay, so those are very important. And also sometimes you say, okay, so I try to collect some people's the data, like about their biomedical information or their social status, their family information. But then when I process the data, so they were not anonymous. So basically, people can retrieve whom they are. So that is not allowed. Also, there is some issue. Okay, so be careful about human-related research. It's not just about if you do some biological related research with human being, like the human tissues, then you have this issue. But you just simply do a survey, then you still need to complete the paperwork. So for the first three things, you have to move first and do as early as possible. Okay, because all of these tasks take some time. And after these tasks are done, then you should put your focus on research report, because this is the thing that college application forms do not have. So you need to prepare them separately. Okay. So for research report, actually, again, different people have different situations. So probably you need to think carefully about how you want to write your research report. And in case you are not clear, so you need to contact STS for further clarification. Okay, so let me give you some examples about research reports. So let's look at the first one. So suppose you have the solo author paper. There was a great paper. So you have a solo author paper, you submit it to some top tier journals, right? It's fantastic. Maybe you make the direct submission to STS, or maybe say if it exceeds the page limit, so you make some minor edit. That's it. So this is the easiest case. And the second scenario also happen a lot. That is, so you need to do substantial work on your existing papers. You need a lot of edit. For example, so maybe I have published a paper, but I'm not a solo author. This was in collaboration with my mentor, or even in collaboration with another high school student. So if this is the case, as I mentioned earlier, so STS evaluates every individual student's credentials in STEM, right? So your research report, it's not a good idea to send a whole paper, but you need to rewrite it by extracting the component that you did in this paper, and also use additional the space in the application form to clearly explain your contribution in this paper and why you make such contribution and why your contribution was significant and original and innovative. Okay, so this is something you have to do when your paper is with multiple authors. Sounds good? This is very, very important, because if you submit a paper, although that may be published at popular journals, say the Nature of Science, right? But it has, say, beyond you, it has two additional people. One is another high school student from your school. Another is a mentor, is a professor. If you directly submit this paper, unfortunately, STS may not appreciate it. It's because it has no idea about where is your contribution, or to what extent you contribute to this paper, right? So you need to take it out and separate it from the other part of the paper. Sounds good? And also also there are some cases that the students in research and they did a sequence of the research on the same topic in the past 2 to 3 years. So for that case, then you could even consider to put different pieces together. For instance, you would say, okay, so 2 years ago, I started my first project in this topic. I published one paper, and last year, after the first the piece of work was done, so I continued this research. I wrote my second research paper based on the first one and make some additional breakthrough. So in STS, you may put these two papers together as long as they form a good sequence there with the same category, with the same topic. Okay, so that is something that is allowed. And actually, this sometimes is good compared to submitting a single paper. It shows that you have been doing something in a dedicated way, in a deeper way, in a solid way. Okay. And the third case is a little bit complicated. That is, you have no paper. So you have no paper, you still want to apply to Regeneron STS. Then the bottom line is you must write one. Okay? If you don't write a paper, you submit to STS. Actually, this is what judges realize. Because once judges receive such applications, it makes their work to be very simple. They directly reject your application. So it's easy for judges, but that will hurt you, right? You don't want to waste your effort. So if you don't have a paper, the bottom line is you must prepare one. Otherwise, there's no way for you to win in STS. No way. But actually, it's not a bad idea to write a paper because you can use this for multiple purposes. One is STS because this is required. And also you may use them for college applications, right? Because some universities will ask you to submit your research papers, right? So they could see the papers rather than just the 3-line abstract. So they can learn more about what you did. So that may boost your chance to get into this college. So it's helpful for college application. And also, so you want to use it for the next year's SF. Actually, sometimes with or without a paper could make it to be different. Okay, because having a paper could easily convince judges that you did something solid and your research has been endorsed already by the peer-reviewed journals. Okay. All right. And the next thing on our timeline is the EAED REA application document. Okay. So you need to prepare for STS together with your college applications for the early cycle because their deadlines are pretty much at the same time. And we have seen that they share lots of common questions. So you should prepare for both of them altogether. Okay. And while preparing for college applications, so you can do the following thing because they share lots of common questions. So you can easily transfer college application responses to STS application. Maybe it's up to some minor changes. That's it. Okay. So those are the timelines. Okay. Next, let's go through the Regeneron STS application form one by one, and from one task to one task, and see how we should respond to those questions and what things we need to pay attention to. Okay. So prior to that, I noticed that some people have put some questions in the chat box. So let me first answer those questions, and then we will move forward to the next step. One question is, can a student start working on a project this summer and join the science fair next spring in order to reach us? Oh, this question is not about Regeneron STS, it's about SF. Yeah, of course you can. So for SF, actually, many students started their projects this summer because it's a good time for you to focus on your research and get some some results. Yes, so that's totally fine. Another question is, can I participate in STS using a paper that has been published? Very good question. Yes, this is allowed. This is allowed. Actually, this is even encouraged. Because think about two things. Students A and B. If student A has a research paper but it has not with the peer review, right? So actually, if you directly send it to judges, to be honest, judges, the first see this, they have no idea or the confidence whether this research is good or not. But if student B uses a paper that has been accepted by Nature or Science, and student B is a solo author, so basically, it means that the journal itself has already helped the judging committee to pre-screen this student's research. And this is the evidence and endorsement from Nature or Science to prove that this student's research is strong. So of course, that is encouraged. If you have the paper published at a very prestigious place, of course, I encourage you to seriously think about using that one for your Regeneron STS. And actually, later on, you go to STS application form, you'll see they will ask you such questions about whether your work has been published or not. Okay. Another question: if I'm accepted into a research program, such as PRIMES, SSP, can I use my research from that program to apply to STS? Yes. The answer is yes for STS. Yes for STS. In other words, it means that as long as you submit something that is done by yourself, either it's a solo author paper or if it's in collaboration with other people, but your research report should DPO other people's contribution, but only keep your own contribution. That is fine for STS. So for instance, if I go to MIT Primes, right? So I made the big finding, right? I proved the significant non-trivial results. So of course, from STS perspective, they love to see such the cutting edge research. But the thing you need to clarify is about that summer program. So that's something you need to first get a clearance from the summer program, such as the program coordinator or the mentor, whether they approve you to use your research in that program for STS. Is it clear about the relationship? So for STS, no issue, it's fine. But for that particular research program, like the MIT Primes or SSP, so you need to get clarifications from either the program or from the mentor or even from both. Okay. Another question: which one's better, publish the paper or a complete project report, which has much more detail of the research and data? So actually, when we go to the application form for the research report, the task, you'll see the requirement, which means that you must submit a paper that is required. So if this report is like the working paper, that is fine. But if this report is just about like the literature review, or is it about a summary of the idea, but it's not really like the research paper, or we call so the official name is called a working paper. If this is a research paper before it's formally published, so it is called a working paper. So if not a working paper or published a paper, unfortunately, this might not even qualify. Yeah. Another question: how many categories in STS? Are they the same? No. So they use a different category definitions from SF. They share some similarities, but there are still some differences. And when we go to the application form in a second, you'll see the list of all categories. Okay. All right. So now let's go to the STS application form. Okay. So I just create an account. Okay, so I also strongly urge you to create your account as early as possible so you can quickly browse all questions. So on the left, this is the task menu. So you can see there are lots of tasks, right? Wow, we have 11 tasks, lots of work to do. Yeah, so indeed, there are lots of work to do. Okay, so let's go over them one by one. So task one is basic information. So this is very simple, right? So you just need to provide your basic information. And please note here is individual competition. Okay, so you will see in the application form that there are many tasks, many parts, many places that STS frequently emphasize that this is an individual competition. And they try to ask various questions around this central thing to see that whether you submit something that is done by yourself. Okay, so for instance here, it asks you to choose that whether this is a work done by yourself only or with another high school student. So basically, you choose the second one. Unfortunately, you are ineligible. So you will directly be denied. Okay, so this is the thing STS is very, very sensitive about. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that for many people whose research have the contribution from the mentors from other high school students. So when you prepare for your research report, so you need to be very, very careful about this. Okay, so once it is determined to be eligible, so all your effort will be wasteful. Okay, all right. So see here, right? It asks you to choose your eligibility about whether you're a high school senior, whether you are attending the school in the US, whether you are a US citizen. Okay. The next one is about the early high school graduation. So there are some the juniors. They want to make an early graduation. So basically, their 11th grade will be their last year in high school. So if that is the case, then there's some additional questions that you have to answer to be in order to be qualified for it. Okay. And the next several questions about some your basic information, your name, gender, right, pronouns, your self-identification. So those are very basic here. Question 10A, 10B. Those are about your parents' information. Again, so STS cares about your parents' background a lot. A lot. For what reason? It's not because they want to learn more about your family background, but it's more about they want to see where your research idea came from and to what extent you make your innovation and contribution in your research. But later you'll see the question explains clearly that actually happened a lot. STS is aware of it pretty well that many kids got ideas from their parents. And many kids choose some research fields that are pretty much the same as their parents. You say that dad is a professor in math, so the kid did a project in math. Dad is a professor in biology, then the kid did a research on the medical study, right? If the mother is a professor in some chemistry, then the kid may also do the similar project in chemistry. So that happened a lot. So the STS wants to see that you submitted something that is pretty close to your parents' ongoing research for their jobs. So whether your parents help you on the project or did a project for you, or you did something independently. Okay. So that's the reason why they ask you to put down your parents' occupation and the place of employment. Sounds good? So for instance, you say, okay, so my mom is a professor at a university XYZ. And my mom is the principal investigator of a lab at the XYZ university, right? So basically, I did all my research in this lab, right? Under the supervision of my mom. So this is the thing, probably need more clarifications, right, about your own contribution, or whether you just try to take advantage of your mom's the professor position, right? Okay. So you see here, right? It asks you to explain about whether some people who are close to you, like your immediate relatives or some other family members, who are doing work related to STEM. Okay, so again, so this is something they want to understand that whether you did something independently. Sounds good? Okay. So the next part is very basic about our high school, right? Yeah, just about your high school. Nothing special. And then you need to list the current coursework. For current coursework, please note that. So when we record this webinar is in July. So it's in the summer, we're transitioning from 11th grade to 12th grade. So when you put on a current coursework, so you should put your position to your senior year. So basically, those should be the list of courses that you will take your senior year. Okay? It's because when you submit this application, you are in your senior year. Yeah, so that is task 1. Next, let's go to task 2. So task 2 has 3 parts. So task 2 is about recommendation letters. So the reason they split into task 2A, 2B, 2C, it is because they require the external supports from 3 different sources in 3 different ways. Okay, let's look at task 2A. Request project recommendation. So this is what it means. So for our recommendations, they ask them from 3 sources. One is about from those people who can prove and certify your research. So we call them project recommendations. For instance, so basically here you are allowed to submit 1 to 2 recommendations. Okay. So if you decide to submit 2, then you need to make sure that there would be one that must be closely related to the research report that you are going to submit. So for instance, if the research report you are going to submit is under the supervision of someone called XYZ, then it's very likely that you need to have this person XYZ to be your project recommender to write a letter. Because in the past, we saw such cases that a student did research under supervision of XYZ, but the student asked 2 different people to write letters. So that was very strange. So as a judge, when I see such a letter, who's not from your mentor, they will raise their question, they will raise their concern. What happened? Because your mentor really like you, if you really did significant the contribution in this project. So it's due that your mentor should show her or his endorsement for you. But if this didn't happen, then they will be concerned what's wrong. Okay. So this is about project recommendation. Sounds good? So basically the purpose of these letters is that those recommenders will be asked to evaluate your research, and in particular, if the recommender was your research mentor, so the recommender needs to elaborate a lot on the details of what you did and on your research ability. Okay, so here's the thing. You must wonder what questions your project recommender needs to answer, right? Let me put it up for you. So once you send an invitation to, say, your mentor called XYZ, so XYZ will need to respond to all these questions. So let's first take count how many questions your recommender needs to respond. Wow. 17 questions, right? That's crazy. So you see the word count. So for each response, your recommender needs to put, so the word count is about 100 or 200 words. But think about it. So if each response is with about 100 or 150 words, so there are 15 questions. Wow. So your recommender has lots of work to do. So that's why you need to contact your recommenders as early as possible to give them sufficient time to write their recommendation letters. And next, let's look at what questions are asked. Okay, so the first question is, let me zoom in a little bit. It's good, yeah. Does anyone in your lab have the familial, long-term, or pre-existing relation to the students? Again, so STS frequently ask both applicants and the recommenders to clarify this because they want to prevent that the student's submitted research was not done by the student herself or himself, but the was through the taking advantage of someone else. Okay. And second, were you paid? So this is very important. Actually, later you'll see such a question that will also go to the applicant. So the applicant will be asked the question that for your research opportunity, how did you get it? Did you pay for the tuition to get this opportunity, or it is free? Okay, so that is also very, very crucial. So the thing is, so you'll see that actually there are quite a few questions asked both to your project recommender and to the applicants. So you need to make sure that the applicant's response and your mentor's response to the same question should be consistent. Is that clear? They should be consistent. And you should not lie. Okay? Because we saw some people, so they did a research through a paid program. They paid for tuition. So to be honest, it's quite reasonable, right? Think about it. If my dad was not a professor, my mom was not a research scientist at some national or state lab, how I got those opportunities? It could be very hard. So everyone understand it. So that's why we may get the opportunities from the third party, right? So we paid a tuition and we got a research opportunity. So this is reasonable. But if this happens, you will not be disadvantaged. But the bottom line is you need to be honest. You need to disclose it to STS. And another thing that is important is that, so also you need to make sure that your answer and your mentor's answer, the same question should be consistent. You can't finally say, okay, so both of you say, okay, so we met each other together through a paid program. And the tuition, so the applicant said, okay, so the tuitions were $1,000, but the mentor said, no, the tuition was $3,000. So that is inconsistency. If this happens, then STS will raise a red flag on your case. So your case will be disqualified. Okay. The third question is, what capacity did you work with the student? Okay. And four, to the best of my knowledge, the mentor, did you mentor the students on the project they have submitted in STS? Again, so this should be the consistent, right? So now, for instance, now for STS project, you said, okay, so I did it very independently. But then your mentor said, okay, no, that's not true. Your mentor actually supervised you. So then this will be the trouble. And question five, briefly explain how the student became known to you. Again, so you need to make sure, so the answer should be consistent. For instance, maybe your mentor is a colleague of your mom at a university. So your mentor said, okay, so I got to know the students was because of the student's mom and I are colleagues at a university XYZ. And then I got to know her kid since he or she was young, right? And then by knowing him for many years, and after he expressed the interest, so I decided to supervise the student. So your mentor role is this way, but on your side, you try to hide this relationship. You said, okay, so I somehow just send a cold email to this professor, and this professor said yes to supervise me. So this is inconsistency, then you'll be in trouble. Okay, so be careful. Next, describe the nature of your involvements with the students' research. Yes. So this is also very important, right? So because sometimes students will exaggerate the way they say, okay, so I take out everything, right? In the lab, I actually didn't receive too much support or help from the mentor. I did everything, but it was not the case actually. So that's not good. Okay. And then the mentor will be asked to respond, how did the students get the idea for the project? Whether the mentor came up with the idea and assigned it to the student, or the student individually came up with the idea, right? Next, what was the duration intensity of the student's research experience at your institution? Okay. Question 9, provide a brief description of your lab environment, what the student's role with the group. Question 10, if there were other high school students in your research group, name them. Explain in detail the difference between the student's work and the work of other high school students in your group. So this is something you need to be very careful in terms of what. So your mentor will be explicitly asked to compare you against other peer high school students. Okay. So this is the following thing. those high school students who work with the same mentor in the same lab, and in particular, that they are in the same grade as you, and also may consider to apply to STS, are essentially your direct competitors. Is it clear what I'm saying? Will be your direct competitors. Because the mentor is explicitly asked to make direct comparison and code that student's name. So this information cannot be hidden. Is it clear? So if you did a product or you did multiple products, but there was one product you want to use this for Regeneron STS. And this one actually works in collaboration with another high school student under the same mentorship. Then you have to think about it very, very carefully. Okay, you have to think about it very carefully. Because STS will directly compare you and that student in the same lab. They compare them in multiple ways. One is that they will see that, so who is better? So they may make the internal comparison between you, and they only want to select the one that is better than the other one. So if you thought that that student in the same lab is better than what you did, probably you should not use that product for STS, or probably you need to use a different product or do something else. Okay. And another thing is, if there's another high school student in the same lab and you and that guy work on the same product, and you may even want to submit the same paper to STS, again, there will be the trouble because STS evaluates your individual contribution. So you and that guy need to both separate the same paper into two different components, right? So suppose that STS receives two applications from both of you and find that both of you write a similar reports that claim that there are some common parts that are claimed to be done by the
Background ka ba? Legal finance ka.
Could you mute yourself? Then you'll be in trouble. Say there's one component in your paper, right? Component A. And student X claims that, okay, so the I did this part. And the student Y claims that also I did this part. The STS will notice that actually there must be something wrong. So both of you will be in trouble. Therefore, if this is the case, you need to think very, very carefully whether you want to use the projects that you did with another high school students in the same lab who will also compete in this year's STS. Okay. And next, right? So for what aspects of research can you give credit to the students as being their own unique contribution? Okay. So I know there are some students who did great publications, but most tasks were done by the mentors or by other the people in the lab, like some postdoc, like some PhD students. But students just did some basic stuff, like for instance, using a spreadsheet to clean data, right? So probably this is not a strong case. Okay. Next, question 12. To your knowledge, how much of the paper that a student is submitting to STS is their own contribution versus that of a lab group or larger research project? So you see that, so STS actually the emphasizes a lot on the individual contribution, right? So this question has been frequently asked in various ways in various places. Question 13, what did the students do that showed creativity and ingenuity? Please provide examples of how the students demonstrate potential as a scientist. Okay, again, your mentor needs to provide the details to prove this. Question 14, based on your knowledge, would you hire the student again in the future? Well, why not? In the next 5 to 10 years, do you believe the students could have a career as a working scientist, engineer, or a mathematician? How do they rank against other students you have worked with in the past? Again, so they want to see whether the students have a passion and has the potential to be a scientist in the future. So basically, if after working with the mentor conclude that I don't think this student have any potential or has any passion to continue this path, it's not good for you. And please note that so your mentor will be asked to directly compare you with other people. Okay. Question 15, does the student have permission to share this research project with Regeneron Science Talent Search? Again, this is something that is very subtle. So that's why when you decide which research report to use, so prior to it, first talk to our mentor and get a permission and clearance from the mentor. So their permissions are at multiple levels. One level of permission is that whether you are permitted to use your research with this mentor to compete in STS. This is one level of permission. The second level of permission is that, so certain mentors will allow you to submit for STS, but they say, okay, so after you get an award, and STS may need to run the press release, right? So you're not allowed to disclose lots of details. Some detail could be, for instance, I did some experiments and there was a critical finding. There was some number, set a percentage that is so sensitive. So I don't want Regeneron STS to put in the press release of that percentage, right? So that is another level of the permission. So you need to know the permissions and what are permitted or not permitted from your mentor. Okay, and your mentor you see here is explicitly asked by this question. Okay, so this is the list of questions that your mentor needs to answer. So you see that so there are lots of work your mentor needs to do, right? And actually, so you see lots of simple questions that will also be responded by your mentor and by yourself, by the applicants. So you need to make sure that your two answers should be aligned, should be consistent. Sounds good? And also, you can see that so in STS emphasis a lot on your individual contribution rather than the team's overall contribution. Okay, so this is about the project recommender. And task 2B is loading. Yeah, here. So you need to get a second source of recommendations from called educator recommendation. So they're essentially your in-school teachers. That's it. So you need to submit 1 to 2 letters from your school teachers. Okay. So you see, this is pretty much the same as your recommendation letter from school teachers for college applications, the same thing. Okay. So you can list the recommendation letters from the same 2 people in your school. Okay. So that's it. I don't think there's anything special here. Then we go to 2C. Then you also need to get a high school report from your school counselor. Okay. Again, so when you apply to colleges, you need to submit a high school report from a counselor. The same thing. Okay. So also you need to talk to a counselor to ask for this report. Sounds good. But the thing is here. So I like the command system that your high school counselor, beyond submitting a report, also needs to write a letter for you. So here, your counselor doesn't need to write a letter, but just be on behalf of the high school to submit a report. That's it. So this is something you need to explain to your high school counselor clearly. Don't scare your counselor and make them incorrectly believe they had to do lots of additional work. That is not the case. So the work is minimum, just simply submit and upload the high school's report. That's it. Okay. All right, those are task 2 about recommendation letters. Next, let's go to task 3. Rule verification and form upload. So recall that I mentioned earlier, so there are some special type of research that involve human beings, involve hazardous materials and animals, right? So your research had those components, then this task, this section apply to you. Otherwise, you say, I did a pure mathematical research, I proved the theorem. So this doesn't apply to you, okay? All right, so there are lots of questions you have to answer here, right? You need to carefully read the rules and understand what kind of documents are required, okay? So you see, so part 2 about it is involved the human research. Definitely did a survey, right? You collected some human subject and the information you need to complete this part. Okay. So for instance, you see here, right? Sometimes you may need to get a consent from your experimental subjects, right? You see there are lots of questions here. Okay. Sounds good. Then here is about the human testing, right? Yes, a lot of such questions. Okay. So that is part 3. Then the central components in these applications or that you need to separately prepare are tasks 4 and 5. So these 2 tasks are central pieces of your application. So they're about your research. So, everyone needs to submit a research report, right? So task 5 is about the upload of the report. That's it. So task 4 is about your summary of this research. Okay. All right, let's see what kind of questions we need to answer. So first, it asks you to choose a project category. Okay. So actually, I recall that someone asked me this question right a while ago. So the answer is here. So here's the list of the category that you need to choose from. So this is similar to SF. That is a list of category again here. So you also have a list of categories. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that you must have wondered the following thing. So whether category matters, right? Or they just mix all categories together. So if you ask STS, they will say, no, so this is not so important. So just choose your category that is closest to what you did, right? So you will not be disadvantaged from one category to another one. But the fact is that, so in particular, for the first round competition, for the top 300 awardees, so the category matters. Category, of course, matters. There are about, I think, about 20 categories. So of course it matters, right? Because it's obvious that they cannot send awards to everyone in the same category, but leave another category without having anyone being awarded. So it doesn't make any sense, right? So there must be a balance over different categories. So therefore, you need to choose your category wisely. Sounds good? Okay. So this is one crucial thing. Actually, let me give you one example. I don't know. Some of you are actually you might the WeChat group, right? Sometimes I share some insights with my friends. So I recall that in last year's Regeneron STS, right? I forgot what's the second or third place? I couldn't remember exactly. There was a project. So it looked to be like the math project, right? So that one was based on a student the research done at MIT Primes. So many people said, okay, so this is the math project, but in my WeChat group, I told people no. So although you saw there were lots of math, but this is not essentially math. So this is about operations research, or is about algorithm. So for algorithm operations research, so you can understand it's not a pure math or even applied math, but you can understand it to be like computer science, right? So actually, this student used this product for SF, also got a big award. And the category this is chose in SF was not math, but a software. So many people were surprised how this simply highly mathematical project could stand out from a software category, because many people incorrectly believe that if they chose software, it is something really like the computer software. But that is not true. That is not true. So you cannot just understand every category at a superficial level. You need to understand its essence. So actually, as early as March, so I shared with my friends, right, about this. I said, so this is a great algorithmic project. This is about a CS project. So then in SF in May, the students chose the software category and got a top award, right? So that's why my point is to say that you need to choose your category wisely. And while choosing category, you need to understand the essence of this category. So there's several things that I want to particularly mention. So one thing is that many people now are using artificial intelligence to do research, right? For instance, so many will say, okay, so I use the AI model, leverage the convolutional neural network for the image classification, right? That's great. Then they incorrectly believe that because this has an AI component and they must program, so I should go to, what is it, computer science category. So this is the wrong sense. Because for that problem, maybe you just use the AI as a tool to help you do something. So AI is not your focus, and your contribution is not on the AI component, right? So for such a product be submitted to computer science category, then it's most likely that you'll be killed. Sounds good? So actually, I know many people will submit research related to coding or AI. So you need to think carefully about whether your contribution is on the AI model itself, or maybe you just use this as a tool, but your contribution is on something else. For instance, maybe it's on the underlying, maybe like the material structure, material model, or maybe it's on the environmental issues, right? So then you should choose the correct category that could make your research to look strong. Sounds good? So this is one the thing that applies, I believe, to many people. And the second thing is here. So STS is called the STEM research. So when people talk about STEM, so your sense is like, for instance, like the math, physics, chemistry, CS, or engineering, various engineerings, right? But those are not complete. Look at here, this category, social sciences. We know STS has a category about social sciences like behavioral studies, right? You study like some psychological issues. So this is about social study, behavioral issues, right? But here you look at its scope. It's broader than that. It's not just about psychology or behavioral science, but it even covers other social science subjects like economics, political science, sociology. So basically, in other words, in my research, studies the economic problem. Okay? So for instance, I developed a math model that studies the resource allocation, or I built the dynamic stochastic equilibrium to study the political system, right? So those are great projects for Regeneron STS. Or nowadays, so we know for GPT is about the large language models, right? So many people are doing research about large language models. So you say, okay, so I did a research about the large language model, natural language processing, right? So of course, this might be about a social science, but it is still a good work. It's a good fit to STS. Is that clear? So if your research goes into social sciences, don't be scared that STS will not work for you. That is not true. So try STS. So maybe you'll get over. Yeah, it works. And after choosing a project category, then you need to choose a product theme. So for product category, here's the thing. So basically, each category has its own judges. Okay, so basically go to this category. So your product will be primarily first judged by people within this category. Okay, so that's why choosing a correct category is so important. You don't want your product to be judged by some people who don't understand what you did. Okay, and then you need to choose a project theme. So first, it help judges know the category of your the project in a second. So it also help STS finally to prepare their press release and the media coverage. Okay. So in terms of these two, you should try to make them to be consistent. Okay, so they should be consistent. They cannot be with conflict. For instance, so like this one, if I choose something called I don't know, physics, but for the project theme, I choose agriculture. Maybe these are totally irrelevant. That is not good, right? So they need to be consistent. Okay. And for this one, actually, for the project theme, unlike the category, you must select only one. So for instance, here, if I select the biochem, but I want to select the second one, like the chemistry. No, you can only select one. But for project theme, you see that I can select as many as I like. So basically, your research spans over multiple themes. Just select all those apply. Okay. The next one is the project title. So basically, this is the title of your research report. That's it. And okay. So if there are special symbols, please explain what that means. So typically, this happened when the title has math symbols. For instance, you have the math research paper, right? And you have some math symbols. So probably you have to explain them here. Okay. So for instance, maybe if I compile my file by using LaTeX, I may have, say, the fraction, say P over Q, right? So this is the LaTeX code for the fraction. So then here you have to explain, right? So it refers to the math formula P over Q. Okay, sounds good. All right. And here's the thing. So there are two places that you should put titles. One is a full project title, another is short project title. Okay. So why they ask you to enter titles twice? So sometimes the full title could be super long, right? But some of the people still need to compile your submissions, right? Compile their media coverage. So sometimes you need to provide a short title, okay? Make sure that it will not lose essential information. And then it asks you to answer questions about the research environments. So those are, like, for instance, where did you do research, right? Your research experiences, right? Where did you do it? Okay, so it asks you in a very detailed way, right? And here, the research payment disclosure. Again, so this should be consistent with the response from your mentor. Okay, you say, okay, so I didn't pay anything, but my mentor said, okay, so this student paid me tuition. That's not good. Okay, and you'll be asked to report where did you do this research, at home or in high school or at a university or somewhere. And then you need to list all your mentors. Again, so keep in mind that the mentors you enter here will be strongly encouraged to also write letters for you. Otherwise, the people will be concerned. Okay. All right. And also you need to explain how did you meet your mentor. Recall that so the same question was asked also to your mentor. So you need to provide a consistent answer. And then you need to explain your contribution, the duration, right? And here, again, so an emphasis on your individual contribution, right? So if this that in group, so what's your independent contribution? Okay. And here you'll be asked explicit about what you did. Okay. Suppose so this is in collaboration with other people. Which part did you do? Okay. So you see that actually, so you'll be asked in a very detailed way, right? So you say my research report is based on the paper collaborated with 3 other people, right? So I need to use this place to clearly and explicitly explain what I did. Like for instance here, so who developed the research problem, who initiated, and who designed the procedure, right? So I did everything by myself, so I should claim all credit, right? You need to put it down here, explain this clearly. And then if you work together with someone else, you can explain that. So maybe someone else, my the collaborator and I jointly developed the procedure. But you will say that you need to also explain that, okay, so for the whole procedure, which components were purely developed by me, okay? And who implemented, who gather, record data, who analyze the data, who formulates the conclusions, okay? So the thing is, if this is the collaborative project, it's not always the case that you did significant contributions in all these dimensions. So let me give you one simple example. Let's look at question D and question E. Okay. So sometimes, the mentor or other people in the lab already put lots of efforts to gather or record, collect or pre-process data. So once you start to work on it, the data set was already there, is available. You don't have to start from scratch. If this is the case, actually you didn't do anything or too much in part D, but don't worry about it. So you should not be disadvantaged about your contribution without having this part. You may did significant contribution in, say, part E in terms of analyzing data, right? So maybe the data is there, someone prepared the data for me, but actually I did the analysis component. Maybe I tested the multiple neural networks. I found none of the existing ones work. So I designed my new neural network architecture that nobody else in the world have ever adopted. And I made some innovations there. And then actually I realized it significantly improved the performance and reduced the loss, right? So this contribution about analysis data is already significant and impactful. Then without having, say, too much contributions in other dimensions, that will still give the judges the correct impression that you are strong enough. Okay, so you don't have to be strong in all dimensions. So, but you need to be strong in one or several dimensions. Question 14, describe any limitations of your research. So every research has the limitation. No research is perfect. So there are some skills to answer this question. First, you can't just say, okay, so the no limitation, my research is perfect. Why some people answering this way is because they were concerned if they put down limitations, that will put them disadvantaged. No. So you must write down some limitations. But the thing is, so if your research really have a serious limitation or has a, we call it don't limitation, we call it a fundamental flaw, then you'll be in trouble. If it has a flaw, you'll be in trouble. But it has a limitation. It, like for instance, like what they suggest you say, okay, so maybe I tested some machine learning models, but we need to use GPU. That is not for free, right? But we have the financial constraint, so we cannot test the more complicated models without having additional money. So that's the limitation. In future, you could be endowed with additional research funding. So we'll try to buy more GPU and test more models, right? So this is okay. This is the totally reasonable, right? Or you say, okay, so due to my age restriction and below 18 years old, we're not allowed to do some particular experiment. But in future, so I want to do my own experiments on this particular equipment and collect my own data. So those are good. Okay, so those limitations are good limitations. Okay. So this one, 15 asks you to explain AI. So just to explain it in an honest way, just be honest. Because I know that some people use the AI to help them, do literature review. That's totally fine. It's reasonable, right? So that saves people lots of time. So if you use AI to help you do literature review, put it down here so people understand it. And as long as you wrote your own literature review rather than using AI to generate it for you, that's okay. And some people say, okay, so for this project, I have some idea, right? So for instance, for the neural network, for the deep learning model, so I have an architecture, but for one block that consists of multiple layers. So I didn't write code from scratch, but I asked ChatGPT to generate the block of code for me. But I sent the prompts about, so this is my design of this block. I want the layers to be structured in such a way. So that's okay. That's totally fine. Or if I have a computational task, I send it to ChatGPT saying, okay, so this is the differential equation that I want to solve, and could you generate the code, send it to MATLAB to allow me to implement it? So that is okay. But you need to report it in an honest way. Okay? If there's a blog code or paper generated from AI, so you need to be honest. Okay? Ernst & Medium published a research paper. Yeah, so you see it asks about a publication, right? So publication matters. And something else that I want to disclose. and there's some the kind of interest that you need to report. And again, here is about a statement of independence. So you see that so STS emphasizes a lot on your independence. So it's very, very important. Okay, so this is one crucial factors that STS will look at in their evaluations. And then you've asked about future plans and permission.
你有没有把你不懂的那道题问老师呀？
Right.
那你懂了吗？
Okay, so for this one, you need to write down your pattern, something. You have a pattern, then enter information here. Okay. All right. Yes. So again, here, individual research project, it explicitly verify that. So this is thing that is crucial. So first, your research report is rooted in your collaborative work, right? So a research report should only keep your individual component, right? And some people operate in another way. That is so they submit a report that is based on their solo work. That's fantastic. But sometimes they make the following subsequent mistake. That is, so now I have a great project, I-17 SDS. But meanwhile, so SDS deadline will be November. The decisions, the top 340 will be released in January, right? But some people want to use the same product for their senior year SF. So there are some county science fairs that will be as early as December, but they want to boost their chance to qualify for SF. So they may try to combine their individual piece with someone else's work together for their SF project. So if this happens, then we'll be disqualified from STS. Even though it happens after your submission, you'll be disqualified. Is it clear? So don't do it. If you do have the plan to combine your research with another high school students in this cycle, then you'll be in trouble, you'll be disqualified. So don't do this stupid thing. All right. So you see, those are all the questions about your research report. And let's look at task 5 about uploading a report. So the task is simple, just upload one, but there are some instructions that you have to carefully read. And many people in the past made mistakes. Okay, so let me highlight some points here. Okay, first, this is crucial. Why it make it with the bold font? As I said earlier, this thing happened, and this honest behavior was on this was detected in 2024 SF, right? So there were one student whose award were revoked because it was identified that this student actually falsely claimed some images made by him or her, but that was not true. So the student actually used some other people's images, and they make some simple manipulations, like the rotation, the flipping, right? So that is not good. So for this year's Regeneron STS, they will check it very, very seriously and carefully. So for every image chart graph that you use, it is from some other source. You must put a source here. Okay? You must put a source. You cannot hide the source. So this happened a lot on many students who did AI research. So think about the following thing. When I did AI research, some people directly use some existing architectures, like for instance, some transformers architecture or CAN architecture, right? So they want to visualize the architecture. They Google search, and they found some existing diagrams, and they directly put the diagram in their research report. So if this happened on you, make sure you correctly cite the source. Like for instance, I used the transformers model. So I used the architecture introduced by the paper. Attention is all you need. This is a seminal paper in transformers, right? So if I didn't put down the source of this image, then for this year's STS, you'll be in trouble. Is that clear? So you have to be very, very careful. Okay. And in case if there's or also another thing is about some formula. Again, this happened a lot in the past. So there are some students who try to make their research or their paper look strong. So they copy paste some formulas and paste somewhere, right? But they didn't put down the source of the formula. They might be from some, just a Google search from some particular papers, but they didn't put down the source. So this is not good this year. If you code some existing formula, even just for the illustration purpose, you still need to put down a source. Sounds good? Be very careful. Otherwise, so you might be classified to be dishonest, okay, or cheating, because such behavior were identified in 2024 ISF, okay. And so they would check this by using various means. So both by human beings and by artificial intelligence, by some advanced software. So they will check this in various means. Okay, so don't pretend that you outsmart the STS people. Okay. All right. And there's another thing here about the scope of the research report. You have a solid paper, solid results, just to make your report look to be very solid, very, very solid. What that means is, you say I have a math paper, and I have proved some hard results, and my proof is very innovative. Put down your proof. That's a central piece. Okay? It's because it helps you distinguish yourself from other people whose research are not strong, or who don't even have a paper. They are just put up something together to look like a paper. That's not good. So that typically happens in the form of writing a literature review, summarizing other people's results, or just envision what might be the future opportunities. So these are not solid research. They're not good. They try to fool, so I would say they try to fool the system, but the STS judges are smart enough. They cannot be fooled by such the basic way. Okay, so you only have such things to submit. I suggest you not to try STS. There's no way for you to win. Okay, so you have a solid paper, just to make it to be as solid as you can. Okay. All right. The next thing is also very crucial. So every research report is with 20-page limit. Please note that this 20 page, so there are multiple things about understanding of 20 pages. First, it includes everything, including abstract, the main body of the paper, the reference list, appendix. Everything is included into 20-page limit. Sounds good? You can say I have the paper with lots of results, right? So in my 20 pages main context, I just put down maybe 5 tables of my experimental results. And I relegate the other additional 15 tables to the appendix that is after the 20 pages limit. Those are on page 21 to 30. I'm sorry, this is not good. So you exceed the page limit. And the second thing is, if you really have to exceed the page limit, lots of things to put there, then you are still allowed to upload a file that is more than 20 pages, say 25 pages. That's still okay. It's still permitted. It doesn't violate the rule. But the thing is, STS informs judges that they can only make the judgment based on your first 20 pages. Is it clear? Therefore, first, I strongly suggest you to control the length within 20 pages. Second, if you really need to run out of 20 pages, put the essential things within 20 pages. After that, there might be some additional and non-essential and supporting results. Okay, because the thing is, so although judges are not allowed to use what you write after the 20th page to evaluate your project, but since you submit them, so in general, people will still take a look at it and get a sense about your product. So people will still read it in general. But once they give their comments, if someone say, okay, so this is a great product, you want to show their support on it. So they cannot use the fact that, okay, so I find one cool result that is on page 22. So that makes this paper to be strong. That is not a valid reason. That is not good because it's after the 20 pages limit. Okay. So therefore, if you run out of page limit, so you may add some supporting or additional information there, but not the significant fundamental results after the page limit. And if you really run out of page limit, do not exceed the limits too much. If you have 22 pages, it seems to be okay. But if your research report has 100 pages, no, that will give people very bad initial impression. Okay. Another thing is here. So many people try to provide the link in their paper to try to direct judges and evaluators to click on links, right? So for the evaluations in STS, this is not allowed. They're not allowed to click on your links. So this happens a lot if some people say, okay, so in particular, it happens a lot on some people who do lots of coding, right? So it's not good to put a snippet of code or a complete snippet of code in your paper because there are too many lines, right? So they say, okay, so we relegate the code to maybe GitHub or somewhere, right? And provide a link. So the thing is, so evaluator judges are not permitted to click on the link, which means that for the most important information, you need to put them in the main body of the research report. You cannot hide some information and ask the judges to open it by clicking on the link. That is not good. Okay, so put all essential and key informations on the main body of the research report. But this leads to another thing. Whether applicants are allowed to put links. This is allowed. So let me tell you about why this sometimes matters. So for instance, if my research requires lots of programming, so this is reasonable, right? So now maybe my code is with 10,000 lines. So I save them in my GitHub account, right? So then in my report, I can say, maybe add a footnote to say, okay, so the complete code is available on my GitHub account, and here's the link. So this is allowed. And from the judge perspective, after reading this link, so they're not allowed to open it or click on it, right? But once they see the link, they know that you indeed did some research, very, very solid. You didn't lie. And if they really want to find a source of our data and want to replicate your results, those are doable. Is it clear? So that could increase their confidence on your research. Is it clear about the effect? And also, there might be some other judges, although they are not allowed to click the link, but since the link is there, they will still put it up and take a look. And once they take a look, go to your GitHub account and read your code. So they're relieved. You indeed did a solid job. So in their evaluation report, although they cannot say I click on the link and I use this to help me judge that this report is good, but they're going to find some other reasons purely based on your 20 pages report to support you. Is that clear about the logic? Okay. And there's another thing that is also very important. It's about the first person. So which words are used to represent the first person? So for the singleton, we have I, right? What about its plural form? It's we. When we write scientific research papers, even though we were just a solo author, we typically use the word we. So for instance, like in the field of economics or business administrations, there are many solo author papers. Even though the number of authors is the one, but the authors still use the word we found, we studied something, we developed the model, we showed something. They still use the plural form for the first person. Okay? So in Regeneron STS, this is something you have to be very careful. If in your paper use the plural form we, then in your research report, I strongly suggest you to change it to I, not we. Is it clear? This is primarily for the purpose to highlight that this is the contribution made not by the team, but individually. Is it clear about what I'm saying? So this is very important. So actually this leads to an issue, right? So think about it. Suppose I have the solo author paper published in Nature of Science. And in that paper, I always use the plural form, we. But actually I'm a solo author. So I definitely want to submit the same paper for STS, right? But I cannot directly submit the Nature Science published paper. So I still need to make this change from we to I to emphasize that I'm making my individual contribution. Is it clear? Okay. All right. So those are about the research, the report. Okay. The next thing. Beyond the research you want to submit for STS, also STS asks you about the previous research experiences. So this actually typically happened in the past in this evaluation. Although theoretically it says that, okay, so you only have the piece of research, the one you submit to STS, that is still fine. But strong researchers typically have multiple pieces of research experiences. So beyond the one they submit as a research report, they still have some other research projects. Okay, so that is why they created this task for you to report all other research projects. Okay, so they put them into multiple categories. The first one is the individual science projects. Okay, so those must be done individually by you. So this is the thing about how we understand the word individual project. So individual does not mean that you are the sole person who took care of everything. But this could be something that was supervised by a mentor, scientist, adult. That is okay. So for instance, I did a research under supervision of a professor, right? That is totally fine. No problem. So this is called individual science projects. This is used to distinguish from the team projects is in the sense that a team refers to other people on a team who are high school students. So let me make it more clear. Suppose I have a project. There are 3 people on this project. But there are 2 scenarios. For scenario 1, the 3 people are my mentor, who is a professor, and my second mentor, who is a doctoral student, and me. So for this project, it's called the individual project because my mentors are not high school students. Is that clear? But let's look at the second scenario that I still did a project with 3 people. But these 3 people include 1 professor, 1 high school student, and me. So this is called a team project. It is because there are other high school students who work together with me. Sounds good? So these things are different. Okay. All right. So it asks you to report your other research achievements. Like for instance, for all other research, did you present it somewhere, right? Okay. So basically, here's the thing. If beyond the research route, so here's the thing, right? So here, actually, when you put down whether you publish somewhere else, even including the open source preprint like the archive, right? So you are allowed to enter the link. So actually need to use your links in a clever way. Select the research report as a site. So it's still a good idea to put on the link there, but it's just for the purpose of showing people you do something in a solid way and put some the redundant work, but not essential materials on the link, right? But here, so it's always good to add a link. For instance, you publish a paper somewhere, how people find this paper, right? Or you have a paper posted on Google Scholar and have the 20 citations. So it's a remarkable number for high school students. So you definitely want to share the link with people, right? So add the link here. So use your links in a clever way, okay? And here it asks you to report your publications, right? And here it asks you to report about the summer program you have ever attended, okay? Like here, how many summer training programs you have attended. And here, do you need to add a new research? Okay. Yeah, about the research program participation. So let me, for instance, put down one. Suppose I had several summer research programs that I participated. For instance, here, so it pop up the list of additional questions you must answer, right? For instance, for program one, which one did you choose? So for instance, here we have the link, right? Into the choose. Yeah. You see, you put RSI, right? You some other people put SSB, right? Yeah. So you see, actually, in their system, they have already saved some prestigious summer programs. Okay. Sounds good. And actually, this is the one thing you see here. So there are some summer programs that everyone knows is about research program, like for instance, SSB, like MIT Primes or RSI, right? But there are some others is so most people's sense is that they're not the research program, but like for instance, there are like in particular the math-related programs like the ROS, right? But you see what I just typed. Yeah, here, ROS, math program. So you see, it's still counted. Therefore, here, when I ask you to report other research program or summer programs or science training institute, do not narrow your scope to only research programs. Do not make it too narrow. Because here you see that you can select even up to 8. And for question 6, it says that if that's not enough, so you can even add more. So please make your scope open to include all those programs you have ever attended. So if you have ever attended a research program like the RSI, like the Cosmos, that are fantastic, but you have ever attended some other programs or even some programs not right in the summer, but in the school year time, that's still okay. Sounds good? Okay, good. And you see here, right? So for each program, you're asked to provide the details about, well, when did you take it and whether this is a part contributing to your STS. Okay, sounds good? All right. Yeah, then let's, oh, another thing is, so here, when you talk about the previous research for the individual one, right? Let's look at here. The right column STS product, yes or no? So my suggestion is you put the STS projects that you use in task 4 and 5 here as the first one. Although this task name is called previous research, but since the examiner asked you this question about what is a STS product, but think about it, everything is the previous research and nothing is used for STS. So what's the point of creating this column, right? So I was begin with the one that you use in task 4 and 5. Is that clear? And actually, this also makes sense in the following way. What is previous research? Because think about task 4 and 5. It actually submitted a full paper. In a published paper, how the paper is published, it must be some research done in the past. It cannot be ongoing. Otherwise, there's no information to publish ongoing work, right? So basically, by default, the one I'm eligible to submit must happen in the past. It's the previous research. So actually, this makes the logic to be consistent, okay? So never forget to list your STS project in the first row and following it, so you may list some additional research that you did, okay? All right. So those are about research. The next one, task 7. Yeah, so this is about the essays. So as I said in the beginning of the webinar, right, so many questions are similar to Common App or MIT or Stanford questions. So basically first the prepare for the kind of applications and write those essay responses. And after that, going back here, okay? And so there are some common questions you just copy and paste. And there are some additional ones, like here, the comment, all right? There's some additional ones that you can later decide how to write. Okay. And task 8 is about activity list, interest awards, right? So from this section, please note that unlike the previous sections, in particular, those are related to research, that should be purely research or purely STEM. So here, that is not the case. So for your activity list, you see you can list up to 7, right? So they can be any type. So my suggestion is do not put all activities to be with the same type, like research. That is not good. So you definitely need to put down some research activities. But beyond that, also add some activities in other dimensions, like arts, like sports, like whatever. Okay. And also you see here's the activity type, right? So they definitely don't have to be everything with research. This is actually very, very bad. So try to give the people a sense that you're well-rounded. Okay. Because finally, when they select the top 40 people, top 10 people, because they receive lots of media attention, so they don't want all selected talented high school students to be all nerdy. That is what not Regeneron STS want to see. Okay, sounds good. And the thing is, for this activity list, some the message is not so important. This is not the major part in your application, but you still need to put some effort to make them look good and give people the sense that you prepared them in a serious way. Okay, but again, so those are not essential. Yeah. Okay. The summer activities, right? So you need to list what you did in the summer. Okay, like whatever you did. So please note that. So this is actually also the question asked by Stanford. So pretty much you just prepare the same answers, but here actually you can say something more. It is because for Stanford prom, I'm not sure about whether this year they will keep the same prom or not. It's not clear yet right now. If they keep the same prom, I recall they only allow you to enter up to 50 words to summarize the past 2 summers. But here you can enter up to 200 words to summarize the past 3 summers. So you can usually answer based on the Stanford prompt, but you can definitely elaborate on what you did in the past 3 summers. Okay. All right. And here I ask you something about the past research experience and the past research competition. So there's something I want to emphasize here. Okay. So let's look at this one. For the second SF, I don't think people have any question because SF and STS are organized by the same institute, right? But the thing is here, Broadcom Masters, what is it about? This is not for high school students, but for middle school students, right? Since it explicitly asks you about this one, so you have ever received any award, even in the middle school stage, you can still check this box and put your award here. Okay? Don't just assume, okay, so this is the application for high school seniors, so I got this award in my middle school, so I should not check this box. No, check this box even if it's applied on you. Okay? All right. And some other science competitions not listed here. I know there are lots of other additional competitions, right? So if you got an award, just list them here. Okay. All right. And here it asks you to list the honors and awards. So these honors and awards could be any type. It could be research related, or it could be some STEM Olympiad like AMC, the USA PHO, USACO, or it could be some non-STEM related. Okay. And then here it asks you to talk about what make you for fun. So again, this is MIT's prompt. It asks you to talk about what you did for fun, right? The same thing here. So for this response, actually just relax and really write down something that you feel fun. It's a very bad idea to say, okay, so something made me fun is to do research. This is very bad, and I'm pretty sure nobody believes it. It's not good. Okay. All right. So those are about this task. Task 8. Then task 9. Task 9 could be straightforward. It's about reporting test scores, transcripts of SAT, right? ACT. Here, AP test scores. Okay. And IB test scores. Okay. Please look at here. Look at question 6 to 7. I ask you to upload score report and college transcript. What they mean? So score reports is not your high school transcript. They are different. So here's the thing. Your high school transcript shall be uploaded by your high school counselor. Okay, so that's your counselor's job. So basically, for STS system, it already has your high school transcript sent from your school counselor. So beyond that, STS wants to see something more. What is about a score report? For instance, if a self-report, my SAT score is 1600. Okay, so I need to verify this. You cannot lie, right? Send me your score from College Board, right? Is it clear? You self-report 80 scores. Send me the official ones. And here, upload college transcript. So some people might be a little bit surprised. The STS is for the high school seniors. How we get college transcript? Here's the thing. Actually, you look at the past STS winners. Many of them started to take college level courses when they were in high schools, maybe as early as they were the 9th grade or 10th grader. It is because how you do advanced research in STEM. It means that so you must have learned advanced STEM, but those are out of the scope of the high school STEM courses. So we're to learn those additional courses, they need to learn them from colleges, right? So you will try to use the various resources from colleges, like for instance, the community college, to learn some advanced courses, and thus they're able to get college transcripts. If this applies to you, then upload your college transcripts. So again, here's the thing that could make your case to be different from others. Think about it. So in one student, in both the STS application and college application, these students only have a high school transcript, but the other student actually submit a college transcript by showing that he or she has taken maybe 10 college level courses. So you can see these two cases are with a huge gap, right? Okay. The next thing is task 10. Beyond the project. So this is just basic information, the contact, the mailing, date of birth, the t-shirt size, okay, the language, the public name, okay, the family information, something like that. Yeah, so this page is very simple. And please note that here. So you are also asked to provide your mentor's information because they need to contact your mentor. Again, here's the thing. So recall that in part 2, right? So you need to request recommendation letters to comment on your project. So as I said earlier, so if you decide not to choose your research mentor, choose someone else to comment on your research. But here, again, if you choose someone else in part 2, in this part, you still need to provide your mentor's information. If these are two different people, as I said, people will question you why you didn't ask your mentor to write the letter, so you'll be in trouble. Okay, so this is this part. Yeah, I think this is very basic. Then task 11, optional research study. So optional research study, let me clarify this word. Research doesn't mean it's about your research, but it is for STS to collect your additional information and do some statistical analysis on their side. It's about their research, not about your research. Sounds good? Basically, they ask you about where you hear from them, right? Something like that. So you see that none of them is about your research, right? So you just want to learn a bit more, and they want to do some research on their side, okay, by collecting your data. Yeah. So those are all the questions asked in the application form. Yeah. So we have gone through the entire application documents for Regeneron STS. Okay, so lastly about our services. Okay, so we provide services to students to help them prepare for the Regeneron STS. And you can see from this webinar that actually, so it is closely tied to the college application prompts. And we should prepare them all together. Therefore, so we provide the services for both the college applications and Regeneron STS. And we try to synchronize them together and put them together. Okay. And regarding how to contact us, so you may subscribe to our newsletter by visiting our website. So we have the form that you can complete on our homepage, or you can email us at thiscontent@professorchen.edu.com, or if you use WeChat, so you may add us on WeChat professorchen.edu 0001. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much about this webinar. Any question? If you have any question, please either turn on your microphone or you may type your question in the chat box. Any question? One question is whether I will upload the videos. Yes. After this webinar, once I get the recording, I will post it in multiple places, like YouTube. I will post them, yeah, on some media platforms. Any other questions? Any further questions? Okay. If there's no more question in the webinar, we may stop here. And if you have any additional question, you can always reach me out after the webinar. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar and being here for quite a long time. Is for about 2 hours and a half. It's really a long webinar. Thank you for being here. And if you need any further help, please feel free to let me know. Okay. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.